I've always yearned to be a doctor, but unfortunately my cutoff points did not ascertain a doctor's or medical degree. I think the first time I got a laptop was when I was in campus. When I won my first award in 2016 from Nikon, that showed me that I can do much. Like, yeah, you're in the right place, you're not in the wrong place. This is fantasy world or a fantasy universe that I'm creating, and every character is related. There's the Genesis, who is Mother Earth, flowing down to all beings that have existed after her. Fictive is a creative movement that integrates African cultures with fantasy. So the next phase is for me to bring all these characters to life in film and also other avenues like comic books, video games, animation, and the likes. I was in a school whereby academics was the main concept. Extracurricular activities was not something that we did uphold at that particular time. So going to Alliance High School exposed me to a lot of things, and I remember the first day when I joined, no, the second day when I joined the school, I went to the school hall and I found people acting, and that intrigued me. So I said, I think I can join the thespian club. At that time, before it was drama club, before it became the thespian club. So I got into drama club, and I remember I started my acting career in Form 1. So I acted my first play. This is the first time I'm getting on stage. The first time I go before a very large audience. So it was a first time for me, everything. And I remember I won an award in Best Actor in Form 1, and I saw that maybe this is something that I should keep up with it. So running through Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, I became a director. I directed my own play, which it won Creative Play, and I was also given an Adjudicator's Award. Then Form 4, I was also awarded. So I've received a lot of awards in acting. Then that opened doors to script writing. Now from script writing is when now my imagination grew from that, because I could create characters, a fantasy character, fiction characters that do not exist. I remember my first play was fiction. No, it was fantasy actually. So from that, the whole ideology of coming up with characters started in high school. Directing, acting, myself being a character on stage. Then now writing characters and bringing these characters to play through the plays and directing, etc. So yeah, so that's when everything started. And when I was in Form 1, I got Form 4s who had cameras. I think at that time we were allowed to go with cameras to school, but not this digital cameras that we have now. At that time it was the compact cameras. So Form 4s were allowed to have cameras in schools, I think for the sole purpose of having those last moment pictures of high school and wrapping up things. So I said that when I get to Form 4, that intrigued me. So I said, I promised myself when I get to Form 4, I'll get a camera to also do that. Then along the way, I met this guy. He was our school watchman, very humble. He had a camera himself, and he was the school photographer. So he was the photographer and also the security man at the same time. This was a double hustle. So from how he conducted his business, I saw him take photographs whenever I needed photographs. Whenever my parents would come to school, I'll call him. His name was Loquizi. That was his nickname. He was a very good guy, but very strict at the same time. He took his work seriously and all that. So when parents will come during visiting, he would have his camera. So he's a security man, but at that time he's a photographer. So take pictures sell the pictures. So that's when I started seeing that exchange, that transaction with photography. And I saw that besides photography being technically interesting, you can also get some chums from it. You can also earn money from it. So the whole idea of starting, the whole inspiration for me beginning my photography journey was actually fueled by that. Me seeing him doing what he did. But remember the first time that I was intrigued to now get a camera was when I was in Form 1 and I saw Form 4s having the camera etc. But the person who fueled the passion was this Loquizi guy, our security personnel. After high school, I joined Kenyatta University. I was called to do analytical chemistry. So I pursued analytical chemistry with management. Before that, I wanted to be a medic. I've always yearned to be a doctor, but unfortunately my cutoff points did not ascertain doctor's or medical degree. So the next option that I had was engineering. And for engineering, the kind of engineering that I wanted to do was chemical engineering. But at that time, chemical engineering was being offered in Moi, all the way to Eldoret. So you see, at that time I was naive. I asked myself, I don't know anyone in Eldoret and I want to be in Nairobi, Nairobi. And this was the first time from Mombasa coming to Nairobi. Yeah, so I was excited and I wanted to be in Nairobi. So when I Googled, I researched, I saw that Moi University at that time was the only institution that was offering chemical engineering. So I asked myself, what other course can I do that is relatable to chemical engineering, that there is still that aspect of chemistry in it, and physics, and yeah. So after doing intense research, I found out that actually analytical chemistry existed, and it's much, there's no much difference between chemical engineering and analytical chemistry. So yeah, I bought the idea, enrolled for analytical chemistry, and yeah. So analytical chemistry, the aspects of the course, let me just pick on a certain unit like photochemistry. There's a unit that we learned that is called photochemistry. So in photochemistry, you get to learn how light interacts with matter on a daily basis. And that gave me a better understanding of lights and lighting, because now I understand in depth as opposed to knowing just, this is how you use a diffuser, this is how you use the strobes and all that and speed lights, etc. I got to learn in depth how light interacts with matter. So relating that with photography, you get to know if I have a softbox and I have that lighting equipment, so how does this light interact with the softbox for me to get optimum results? So that shaped my understanding and it kind of opened my mind, stretched my mind more. So there are bits of applications in chemistry that, because photography itself is chemistry, we don't know, but it is. So it's chemistry in action. Yeah, so even the sensor, the mechanism of light falling on the sensor, the shutter mechanism, that's physics. And there are some topics that I could relate. So that kind of stretched my mind to understand the deeper concepts of photography. So I remember the same culture that was in high school, the idea of you can balance academics with extracurricular activities. So that culture, I brought it with me to campus. And I remember whenever I would have a slight opportunity, I would go to the fine art school, get to know what they are doing, because I used to be a very social person. So I'll go to fine art, I'll go to School of Economics, I'll go to so many schools that besides pure and applied sciences. And I think it's interacting with students from fine art, people who are doing graphic design, people who are doing fashion, being exposed to that also enlarged my scope and also my thinking. And I think that has greatly contributed to how my work looks and feels like. There's that artistic perspective. So this was as a result of that interaction with other students in other schools. More so, I became friends with students from fine art, fashion, and economics. I remember there's a time I I was sickly. In high school, I used to have intense migraines. I think that was just depression at that particular time, family affairs and all that. So photography for me, when I started photography and when I started taking pictures in high school, it really relieved me of all this, of the depression and all these thoughts that had harbored in my mind and all that. So for me, photography became therapeutical more than it was a technical subject or yeah. So in high school, it was therapeutical. It really helped me through high school. Hiyo ikapona, migraines zikakuja zikatulia and all that. Then when I got to campus, at that time photography for me was a passion, even in high school. Though there was that aspect of therapy that was involved, but it was a passion for me, nothing serious. When I got to campus, the same thing, passion, but then I started experimenting. So when I think the first time I got a laptop was when I was in campus. So I had from the graphic design department. So I got Photoshop and all that, started experimenting with this. If I do this and that, like no information, no nothing. I did not know anything about tutorials. I did not know anything about you can get some information from YouTube, from Google and all that. So I'll just have Photoshop, open Photoshop, try out different things. What does this tool do? What does this tool do? So I apply, have a picture, put it there, I apply, I see what does it do? I write it down manually. So my learning phase was more through experimentation, getting to see this tool does this tool does this, and write it down. Yeah, so it was more like how someone will do a thesis in school. So that is how I did it. So from experimentation, having colleagues who will volunteer for me to photograph so that I can work on my skills. Then I remember during the holidays, since I did not have, because I began not having a camera of my own before I got to Form 4. I had a compact camera, but I really needed something better. So in campus, I still had that compact camera from high school. So there's this guy who used to work in Malindi but stays in Mombasa. So during the holidays, during weekends, when I was in Mombasa, I would get the camera from him. He was kind enough to assist me with that. His name is Fred. And I will get the camera from him, go take pictures at the beach, then come, try to edit. At that time, at times I would edit with my phone, photo grid, then just put the logo there, splash it. Just minor adjustments, logo, photo grid posts. Yeah, so that is how I started. When I got Photoshop, I started experimenting, noticed that I can do this and that. Then students from the fashion department would also come. So we formed a group with fashion students. So whenever I would come from the labs, I would join them, especially at 4, because that was the time that I could have that free time to interact with other students, because of the very our schedule was that tight, so I had to find the slightest opportunity I could get. Yeah, so we could gather around, talk about ideas, what can we shoot next. So that's when I started developing concepts. I could harbor concepts. Now this is now from acting, from script writing, this is another thing. So from them I learned so much about fashion, and I got to so this is what fashion entails, this is how you pose a model, this is how you do this. I learned that with fashion I need to focus on details, because at the end of the day these people spend so much resources on garments. So slowly by slowly I was enlightened. This was something new to me, something that I did not learn, so I learned from them, and that's how I equipped my skills slowly and slowly and slowly. In campus, I had this conflict of interest that was within me, because it reached a point, I just felt I wanted to study something that I would know the know-how to generate income from it. You see courses like medicine, that's assured, like utaandikwa kazi. It's not a course that you can say that I'll open, before you open or establish your own hospital, it's something that you know it's marketable, you get. So with analytical chemistry, I really needed to learn the entrepreneurial side of it, because that is what I thought. Then towards third year, fourth year, as I was finishing, I learned that I've done so much theory. And okay, I've done also practical, but there's nothing that I can come outside school and say I can establish something of my own. If it's my own laboratory, I haven't been taught how to do business in chemistry, and that is what I needed. So when I saw that, I said, I think I'd started something in high school, and that is something that my fellow students encouraged me to pursue. So there's this conflict of interest. Do I still pursue a science or do I do arts? It has been there for the longest time, I think since second year. Do I do arts? Do I do analytical chemistry? Do I do arts? Do I do analytical chemistry? So I said, let me balance and see where this gets me and where this will get me at the same time. The same culture that I had in high school. Yeah, so I think when I won my first award in 2016 from Nikon, I think that is the time when I realized that because I was shortlisted among the top 10 in Kenya. There was a contest at that time. At that time, I did not believe in myself as much in photography. So when they shortlisted me for that, leave alone that there was one that was just online. It was Nikon something, I can't remember the name. But if you go check 2016, you'll find the list. So I was listed at number 8. I think it was a portrait that I'd taken of my grandpa. And I was so excited, and that showed me that I can do much. Like, yeah, you're in the right place, you're not in the wrong place. So that kind of solved my conflict, and I started settling in slowly by slowly, loving photography, getting myself into, imagine myself fully into photography. 2017, that's when I think I saw a very, not even drastic, it was just sharp. I saw that sharp change in my style, because I used to shoot okay, they are good images, but if I compare that journey, if I look back, I'm just like, okay, bana sikuwa nafanya kitu. So at that time, there was this makeup artist. She was doing a project, and she kinda hooked me up with Alois at a particular time, and it was Kenya concept, I remember. So she brought us together. It was a team of creatives. I wasn't exposed to that kind of thinking at that particular time. And so when we started shooting, yes, I had the skills, but the thinking wasn't there. So when I met Alois and saw how he did his work, that changed how I started thinking. Then afterwards, Alois mentioned that he studied with Osborne, Jquat, and when Osborne what is this called? I think he delayed because there's a unit that he had failed. So he had to go back, and that is when now they got into the same class with Alois. So when Alois told me about Osborne, I went and researched, like, who's this guy who mentored this guy? So when I saw Osborne's work, I was really inspired. Then from Osborne, I needed to learn who inspired Osborne. Then I went and researched how they did their photographs, because these are people that have been there. So I saw this, who mentored you, who inspired you? I go to that person. Who inspired this person? I go and I do my research on that. Then afterwards, I got a pool of photographers whom these people looked up to. Then I started studying their work, got to learn how they think and all that. And then I think that is the first time that my mind now started stretching, because the technical skills were there, if it's lighting, if it's composition, if it's all that, but now the thinking was still not that wide. So after being exposed to how these people worked and how they were thinking, that is when now, because I think the capability to think that way was there because I did act and I did write these scripts, but bringing these concepts visually, interpreting my scripts visually was the only thing I couldn't at that time. Alafu pia I had limited, I remember I wasn't, even with Photoshop, I wasn't well versed at that particular time, because there are things that you have to know first before you can interpret your story visually. So I had to, I will do fine art photography at that time, but before I began fantasy, I had to be very well versed with these softwares like Photoshop and the likes. Like I said before, I started with fine art photography. I had this dark, moody photos. That is what I embraced. Then before now coming to fantasy, I kind of love photographs, coming up with characters in photographs, and not just any characters, because you can come up with characters and how do we differentiate your style from the other person? How can you tell my work from Osborne's, from the photographers abroad and all that? So I incorporate African characters with superpowers. So it's more of science fiction and fantasy in my work. I try as much as possible to be 100% African authentic. If I do not have work, because this is also one thing that kind of jogs my mind for me to harbor all those concepts, I do watch a lot of movies. Yeah. So if I'm not doing any editing, I'm not doing any motivational talks, because I hold motivational talks. I love impacting people, impacting students, impacting kids. I do that a lot in high schools, in primary schools. I've done that in one campus, so I want to expand on that. So if I'm not doing motivational speaking, if I'm not doing writing, because right now I'm writing content for film. If I'm not editing, then I'm somewhere watching a fantasy movie. I'm just somewhere locked in some place somewhere. This picture is about two brothers. It's about two brothers, twins actually. There is Jabari and there is Baraka. So funny enough, those names were derived. I think there was a time I was having a conversation with my partner. And when we were coming up with when we had this conversation, you will have these conversations with your partner, especially when now you want to start a family, when you are getting names for the kids and all that. As a man, you have to have a vision. You have to see ahead of time. So we're having this conversation of what we'll name our sons, if we have any. So that's when the name Jabari came and Baraka came. At that time, I had not thought of the concept. Those were the names. Then we asked ourselves, this was just something we were talking. We did not know that will bring a concept. Say if Jabari, we hope that Jabari will look like this, will have these characteristics. We hope that Baraka will look like this. Jabari will be a leader. Baraka will also take the same mantle. So this will be leaders. So that is how the names came by. It was just a discussion that I was having with my partner at that particular time. We did not know. Then after I had done a previous project on Immortal Sisters, now I wanted to have a continuity. So what happens after the sisters? So that's when I came up with the concepts of the legendary Mara twins, gods amongst men, having two men conceived from the union of two spirits. So dating back in my story, there's this woman who existed. Before she existed, there was a floating mass of land. That floating mass of land gave rise to a tree. When that tree blossomed, the roots gave rise to the first human, the first being to exist, which was a lady, Mother Earth, motherly, the creator. So Mother Earth created spirits. After Mother Earth created spirits, she then created gods. When she created gods, then human beings came after. So amongst the spirits, there were two spirits who conceived these twins. And the picture that we are looking at is Baraka. Baraka is one of the products from these spirits. And they have characteristics. One borrows from the father, who is the sun spirit, that is Jabari. Then Baraka borrows traits from the mother, who is also spirit, the river spirits, Nkatha. So he has attributes that come from the mother. The mother is a river spirit, the mother is the provider, the mother stays in the seas, in the river, the water bodies. So Baraka does the same, but the strength comes from their father. Yeah, so Gaitana is, so when Mother Earth created gods, because she longed to have beings that she can call her children. So her being a god or a goddess, she wanted to have, to create beings in her likeness and beings that she could call her own children. So she created three gods. That was Gakere, Gakuya, and Gaitana. So Gaitana was the youngest sibling of the three. Gakere is a seer, he has the power of vision. Gakuya, whom we are looking at now, has or rather possesses lightning powers and also can run as fast as lightning. Then Gaitana had the power to manipulate cosmic energy, but she killed her siblings and consumed the powers to become the all-powerful being on Earth. Jabari, being born from the union of Engolong, Masai, the sun spirit, Nkatha, Meru, the river spirit. So he has the characteristics of his father, being that he gets his power from the sun. When he's exposed to sun rays, that's how he gets his powers. And from these powers, he's able to convert them to heat, such that he can manipulate heat energy. At the same time, he has superhuman strength, godlike strength. He has the strength of 1,000 rhinos combined. So that durability, you take 1, 2, 3 till 1,000 rhinos, that is huge. 1,000 rhinos combined. Then he's a highly skilled combatant, and his axe is magical, in that it's enchanted with ancient magic, and he uses it to bring down monsters in Mara. The same as the spear. The spear is also enchanted with magic. So he's the protector of Mara. He lives on land while Baraka lives in the sea. So Baraka protects people from the water masses. Jabari protects people from Mara, now from the land. Yeah. So this is the Immortal Sisters project, and then the picture that we see before us is of Wangeshi, the eldest sibling amongst the 4 sisters. Back in Changamwe, back in Mombasa, hometown, we have this family friend whom the kid is physically handicapped. So from that encounter, for the longest time, his name is Emmanuel, and I really love kids, and Emmanuel has been my friend for the longest time, besides him being a kid. So from that encounter, I think I wanted to do something to showcase persons living with disabilities, but I couldn't get a grasp of what I wanted to do. So it kept ringing in my head, I really need to do something, but I did not know what I needed to do. Then there was this time during COVID, there's this Mzungu, her name is Lisa Russell, when she came to Mombasa for a workshop from US. And I got the poster online. I told myself, let me attend the workshop. So I made time, went for the workshop. I sat down, listened. So there was this time when Lisa asked us to introduce ourselves before everyone. And so when I went in front, I saw this lady, and she happens to have been in the Sauti Sol band. At that time, I did not know who she was. So when I'm speaking, I could, she came in. When she came in, I saw her being held, but I couldn't tell why. So she sat down. So when I went in front, I was introducing myself, but I kept looking at her. I'm introducing myself, but my eyes are just going there. So that's when I realized I've seen this lady. I've seen her on TV. I've seen her in certain music. So that's when it ringed that, because she introduced herself later. So that's when it ringed. I think this is Crystal. So the first thing that I saw or I gazed at were the eyes, because I actually even did not know that she was blind. Even in the music, you just see her dancing and singing very well, so you can't even tell. So I looked at her, because I remember from that time, it's when I went back home and did research. I knew, the Crystal is blind. So I looked at her eyes, and from her I got now what I needed to do. It now ringed in me that I need to create a concept visually about 4 sisters that are handicapped, and she inspired the character Wangeshi, because Wangeshi is a blind character. Wangeshi can create portals to other dimensions, and she uses that ability to, when we have enemies, she can easily create a portal and throw the enemies there, because on the other dimension it's like a prison. She decides, what dimension do I want to throw you to? And Wangeshi has a third eye that enables her now to have a supernatural vision, to see beyond the physical. She can actually see spirits. She can see any supernatural encounters, things that the normal human eye cannot see. So it's like her vision is amplified in a way. So she's the leader, she's the ringleader, she's the eldest. She can create portals to other dimensions, and she can see beyond the physical. Njoki is actually the one thing that brings all these sisters together, because it happened that when these children were born, the father chased, or rather did not want to have them around, and wanted them to be killed, because that is a stereotype, and that is one problem that is facing, it's an issue here in Africa, whereby kids are born with disabilities, then we want to kill them and all that. So I wanted to address that issue. So when these kids were born, the father did not want them and suggested to the mother that he wants them killed. So the mother opted to keep them, but for their safety, she ran away from home to raise the kids somewhere else. Then it happened that the community also did not accept the kids. So it was a whole communal thing. So the Immortal Sisters grew up in a cave. The mother passed on, but she left the children under the care of the river spirit who is in Nkatha. So when they grew up, they knew that they lived in isolation. So they knew that the community had disregarded them and all that. So it reached a point whereby Gaitana had taken control and they needed to find someone who could assist them. And the Wazee said that it's only the Immortal Sisters who can help. When they approached the Immortal Sisters, they had to do a ceremony and all that to appease them so that they can accept to forgive them. But then there was a prophecy that a girl will be born who will unify the sisters so that she can fight the enemy. Because Njoki absorbs these sisters supernaturally. You see how I am me, then I can absorb you. I absorb you so that your powers are now inside me. His powers are now inside me and I fight as one person. So that is Njoki. And Njoki can portray or rather can morph into one of the sisters. So if she's Njoki, she can morph to Wangeshi, come back to Wanjiku. Or rather she can be one person, one individual, but having the powers of all these people. Because it really needed that to defeat the villain of the story. Wangari is deaf, and also she lost part of her arm. So Nkatha gifted her with one machete that is enchanted with magic that could slice through spirits, because this is not any ordinary machete. You had to have something that could even injure or kill spirits. You can kill the human form, but you can't kill the spirits. So that was the purpose of the machete. And also Nkatha also gifted her a bionic arm that could project solar blasts. Yeah, so that now she can explode things and all that. Yeah, so this is fantasy world or a fantasy universe that I'm creating. And every character is related. There's the Genesis, who is Mother Earth, flowing down to all beings that have existed after her. And this is an idea that I developed in high school, but I didn't have the means to interpret that visually. When I could imagine how heaven looked like, how the war in heaven, when it erupted between angels and the masses that followed the devil and that dispute and all that. So I told myself that one day I'll create something of the sort. Then I found myself doing my own stories, original, that I could bring forth and interpret visually. Yeah, so every story gives birth to the next story gives birth to the next story. So there's that correlation between all these stories from the Genesis towards the end. I have done more than those two tribes. I did Kamba. There is Kavingu. Kavingu is a futuristic character in the 2066, who develops the first human cyborg. So I've done Kamba, I've done Masai, I've done Kikuyu, I've done Meru. Yeah, those 4 tribes so far. So I desire to expand and perhaps cover all tribes in Kenya. Fictive is a creative movement that integrates Africanism, or rather it integrates African cultures with fantasy. That is through creative visual storytelling. For me as an artist and as a photographer, what has really worked for me is collaboration, because I get to have things that I myself do not. I get to have skills that I myself do not have. I get to have resources that I myself do not. I might not have everything, but there's someone out there who has what I need or what I want. And I'm always open to anyone who is willing to chip in and to partner with me, and to see how we can enlarge the scope of this vision, because this is a very huge vision and it really needs a lot of sacrifice, a lot of resources. But I know people who have the means and the resources and what it takes to bring all this to life. So I'm very passionate about filmmaking. I'm very passionate about creating movies. Even beyond photography, film is just my passion. I'm just on that phase whereby I'm trying to find myself in that, so that I can start creating movies, film, and series. So the next phase is for me to bring all these characters to life in film and also other avenues like comic books, video games, animation, and the likes.